Be patient with all that is unsolved within your heart and learn to love the questions themselves. Well, what questions could possibly be unsolved? Looking around at the multiplicity of faces on our Zoom screen this morning, we know that the questions are many, and they provide so much opportunity for patience, whether we like it or not. So much opportunity for waiting and wondering, for noticing our impatience when it surfaces, and for choosing another course, a course of patience, of acceptance, faith, and simply presence. So what questions are with us in this room today? Well, I imagine there may be wonderings about life path or career, as there were for the young poet in our reading. Are we going in the right direction? Will the right opportunities emerge for us? Will we be able to fulfill our life's potential? Or perhaps relationship questions are weighing on us today. Are we in the right partnership, or would we like to be? Is there some way a relationship could be improved? What could we and another do to enhance the connection that we have? Then again, there may be health concerns that occupy our minds today. What will the diagnosis be? How will we cope with a new illness or a progressing disability? How will we find relief from a source of pain? Or perhaps existential questions weigh on our mind. Will human beings act decisively to slow climate change and heal the damage done to the planet? What can we do to contribute positively to the healing that the world now needs? I could spend the rest of this sermon listing the many questions that remain unsolved in my heart, and I'm sure you could too. I could analyze them, dissect them, ruminate on them, as I often do. But instead, today I, along with you, I am called to be patient with them, indeed, to accept them, to love them, as difficult as that sounds. Strategizing to solve the questions as swiftly as possible, judging so many aspects of our life experience, these are things we do very naturally as human beings, perhaps because they give us a sense of power and control. But there's a great body of spiritual wisdom that invites us not to answer the questions quickly, to solve our problems right away. Wisdom says instead, be patient. Don't hurry up and do something to force a solution. Wait. The Jewish season of Passover or Pesach is a time of patience, of waiting and wondering and celebrating the miracles that happen in the fullness of time. As the writer Eve Fairbanks wrote in the Washington Post, Passover is all about time. It's about the way we have to have faith in time and live time and trust the way it turns things over. It turns water to blood and then back again. It turns darkness to light, restriction to freedom, suffering to joy. Time is a chemist. Time is perhaps even an alchemist, with powers we human beings have never been able to harness for ourselves. In the Passover story, though, everything takes time. More than that, time reveals that difficult things, bad things, are a passage, a preparation for goodness. Writing about the ancient leader of the Jewish people, she says, Moses at first was no man ready to lead a people. If he had to judge his future by what he could come up with in the 5 seconds after he saw the bush on fire, he'd have given up. His rebirth as a leader took time. The work of time on him wasn't linear, but a kind of cyclical process or a pendulum. It wasn't manifested as a simple step-by-step trudge out of low self-esteem. It was down before up, a journey through his anxiety and uncertainty, through challenges that deepened him, taught him compassion, and allowed for a fuller, rounder, ultimate becoming. During my recent mini sabbatical, I watched the movie News of the World, in which Tom Hanks rescues an orphaned girl and travels a long distance across post-Civil War America. Before the two met, the girl was raised by Indigenous people, and when she was asked to describe the world, she makes a gesture of a circle. But Tom Hanks' character says that his culture, the white culture, sees life as a straight line from one destination to another, from a problem straight to a solution. Ancient wisdom teachings often return us to a more circular understanding, which takes us through a place of unknowing again and again and again. We can think of ancient koans, unsolvable riddles, that were intended to keep the mind in a state of bewilderment rather than certainty. In our culture's understanding, this need to be patient, to sit with the unknowing, well, it can seem uncomfortable and even counterproductive. We want to get to a solution and fast. But our growth, our inner development, is often better served by patiently living the questions. This is something that not only old voices tell us, but new ones as well. The contemporary poet and spiritual writer Mark Nepo writes that each person needs to find the particular path that will welcome the questions, that will liberate the mind. Not the answers that liberate the mind, but the questions. Another person I've been reading lately, the writer and philosopher Charles Eisenstein, helps me understand how important it is to linger in those questions. He points out that when we don't know what to do, we often act anyway. We rush to judgment. We spring into action. When we do this, he says, we're often responding out of habit, and we're likely to take action that keeps us stuck in what he calls the story of separation, rather than moving into the story of interbeing, as surely we want to do. The story of separation, of competition, hierarchy, and control is, of course, what has led our human species to do so much damage, from which we now hope to heal. Eisenstein writes, "There are two things you can do in the space between stories: nothing or something. The danger is to, out of urgency or fear, keep doing what you have been doing in the old story. Instead, we are called to wait for the mud to settle, as the ancient philosopher Lao Tzu once said. Wait for the mud to settle. Slowly, the water clears." This waiting can be very difficult for many of us, and this has been true in many human stories throughout history. So thinking back to those letters between the two poets a century ago, what were the questions Mr. Kappas felt were unsolved in his heart? I suspect that he was oriented toward the world of competition and success when he contacted Rilke. He may have been troubled by questions such as, am I a good writer? And what is the correct method to make work that's of sufficiently high quality to succeed in the marketplace? Well, Rilke was wise enough to refrain from answering those questions directly. He likely knew that those were not the questions from which great poems would be born, nor are they questions that lead to more love or peace of mind. Instead, they tend to lead toward a life of competition and striving, a feeling of being not good enough, which I've explored in other sermons this year. By contrast, being patient to live without the instant gratification of success, leaving the space for non-doing and non-fixing, well, that might lead to deeper questions such as, who am I? What calls me? Or even, what poem is arising through my life? These are questions that defy easy answers. They are questions that invite us to suspend judgment, to simply be still, and to listen to life. Of course, we're in the habit of judging continually, and that habitual judging is a big part of the systems of oppression that we're now called to dismantle. Systems such as patriarchy and colonialism that are known for dividing and conquering. The story of interbeing, as opposed to the story of separation, leads us to integrate what is known and not known in our hearts. To be patient with what is not in our control, while being gradually more attuned to what we can do here and now with what we have. We can intentionally develop that patience through a spiritual practice such as meditation and through prayer, in which we humbly ask life, the creative process, God, or any name you might like to use, to work in us, moment by moment and day by day. This is, I think, what Rilke was recommending when he said that ripening comes only to those who are patient, who are there as if eternity lay before them, so unconcernedly silent and vast. It's the engagement with that vast mystery that leads to spiritual growth and inner well-being, if not perhaps the specific answers we might have been hoping to find. What if we could learn to stay patiently present with the aspects of life that we find difficult, uncomfortable, or mystifying? What if we could be loving, patient, and kind toward those questions without pushing them away or running from them? How could that stance change the way we see the world and our place in it? Perhaps this spiritually humble way of being could allow us to live in the interbeing of the world more gracefully, without fighting so much. Perhaps we could let life's answer flow through us, and therefore live in greater harmony with ourselves and with everyone and all around us. When we allow ourselves to be patient and still, we allow ourselves to return to the ground of our inner teacher, where the most natural and loving choices are born. When we allow that to happen, the choices that arise can shape our lives in ways that are profoundly meaningful. New answers will come in times and in ways that we may not expect. And it's important to add as well that as we are waiting, we need the companionship of others, the love and the patience of others, as we live through so many times of unanswered questions that arise at every stage of life. Recently, someone I know told me about how this kind of patience paid off for him. He had a creative epiphany in the shower, as sometimes happens. An unexpected flash of insight opened up a world of possibility and answered a long unsolved question for him. Reflecting on the experience, he said that he realized he had been sitting with this particular riddle unconsciously, semi-consciously, and with awareness for a very long time. I asked him how long, and he thought a moment and said, I think it's been at least 6 years, maybe more. After that long time of waiting, suddenly the riddle solved itself when he was least expecting it. Whatever questions remain unsolved in your heart this morning, I wish you the peace and the patience to let the answers arise in good time.